When Netflix said Netflix only movie, they weren't kidding. You literally can't watch this film anywhere else unless you have a Netflix subscription. Hello, welcome to Christy Gray's Scarlet Pen. I'm an author, creativity chaser, and book lover. Today, my book versus movie is To All the Boys I Loved Before, which was a huge smash movie when it came out. A few years ago. They have done 3, I think, such movies, and they are based off of 3 books. To All the Boys I Loved Before is the first book in the installment. It is only on Netflix that you can watch this movie, but I decided to tackle the book that it was based off of to see what I thought was better and the changes and all of those fun things that happen when we do a book versus movie. So I have my trusty notes here because, not gonna lie, it took me a while to get around to filming this video. So some of my thoughts I have to try and remember. That's why I wrote them down. Ta-da. Aww. Yeah. This is a common complaint. I think I mention it in every single video I do. But the characters were awful. Compared to the movie, movies make characters more likable because otherwise people aren't going to watch the film. But in this book, a lot of the characters were more cynical, snarky, sarcastic, dark, mean, whatever. Margot, the older sister character, she was just bitchy. She was a bitch. She was so mean. She was mean in the book. Awful. Like, she was authority type sister, motherly type sister character in the film. But she still had elements of love in her, whereas this character in the book, she was a bitch on wheels. I just did not like her. Lara Jean's friend Chris in the book was a truant. She was ditching school all the time, getting drunk. She was like, just super horrible influence, whereas in the film, she's more just like, I'll look like a goth and then just be a little bit snarky, and that's the extent of my rebellion. Whereas in the book, she was like, she was wild child a little bit. It's a little bit crazy. So the characters were different in that way. I think Peter wasn't as likable. So a really good element that I liked about the film was that they put the backstory in the start before Margot leaves. So Margot leaves quite early on in the book, but we got a lot of really nice backstory. There was also some small changes that I noticed. Things like Lara Jean fainting when Peter tells her about the letter. That wasn't in the book. It was in the movie. And you had, I think, Peter in the book is the one to suggest the hand in the pocket thing, not Lara Jean, which actually was really nice. It gave him a really sweet element. He wasn't unlikable, he just wasn't as likable as the film. So there was just the small changes, which I don't know why they changed. They also, what I noticed was there was references to the second movie in the first book. So they reference things like the retirement place where Lara Jean ends up volunteering and runs into John Ambrose. They mention that in the first book, whereas in the first movie, none of that is mentioned at all. I don't know why that was. I wasn't creating the movies. But they did mention some of those in the first book, so that was fun because I'd also seen the second movie as well. So the Josh character was a little bit different in that in the book, he actually remained friends and still kept coming to spend time with the family after Margot left for college, after he got the letter, after they talked he just came around for dinner just because he was friendly with the family. They loved him, they cared about him. Whereas in the film, after he's got the letter and Margot had gone and they sort of broke up or whatever, he just sort of disappeared almost from the movie, except for an occasional moment where Lara Jean would run into him and be worried about what he thought about her and Peter dating or whatever. But it was interesting. He just kept coming around and being part of their family, even though it sort of was this dynamic of, well, you broke up with the person you were closest to, but they'd been friends first. So it was, I don't know how I feel about that. My feelings were on the fence when it came to that. I guess they've been involved in a family for so long. Just because you broke up with one of them doesn't mean you're not friends with everybody else. So, I don't know. He would only live next door, so it's not like it would have been a big deal, but it was a big deal for Peter. Anyway, so that was a little bit of a different element that we didn't get in the film. Again, on the fence about that. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was, whatever. So Kitty's character was really interesting. In the film, she appears to be not too much younger than Lara Jean, maybe 3 years younger, but she actually in the book was a lot younger. Like, she is, 10, and it's like 10 and 16. It's like There's a huge difference, and it shows. It's really obvious. She is a little girl in the book. Again, I don't know how I feel about that. I prefer the dynamic, I think, of her a little bit older, a little bit snarkier in the film. I liked that dynamic. I thought it was fun. She could bring some sass instead of just, I mean, when she was a bit sassy when she was so young in the book, it sort of gave it just was a different dynamic and a different element. And because she was so young, yeah, it was just a different need from her regarding the other sisters and her family and the people around her. It was sort of like babying her a little bit. And I don't know if I really enjoyed that element. I think I preferred it when she was a little bit older and it was a little bit more fun. There was funner dynamics when she's older and she's a bit more able to understand that sending out those letters was actually a horrible idea instead of just a mistake that she made because she was so young. So I don't know. Another thing that I noticed which was really different was that the letters in the book were actually really obviously goodbye letters. So in the film, it sort of made it seem more like she just wrote a letter to tell them how much she loved them and then put it in a box to put those feelings away. Whereas in the film, it's really a goodbye letter. It's a, I love you, but I don't want to love you, or I can't love you anymore, so I'm gonna say goodbye to you. I'm gonna say all these things about you that I don't like to try and convince myself I don't love you, which, let's face it, she didn't love most of those guys anyway. She's had crushes. But I just, yeah, they were really clear goodbyes instead of I love yous. And so reading those, I feel like would have been painful. When Peter brings up some of the things that she wrote about him stealing the last piece of pizza or stupid things to try and convince herself she doesn't love him, he came to her and was like, I don't have the last piece of pizza. Like, some of those things might have actually been pretty hurtful for these guys to read. That was an element you didn't get in the movie. I'm glad that they didn't get that in the movie. When people point out things about you that you already have insecurities about, it's kind of painful and hurtful and mean. So I think that was a good element that they didn't include in the film. But it was just different to see that sort of more goodbye as opposed to I love you. The last and biggest thing that I sort of noticed as well was book one ended with them broken up. So the movie ended with them getting together. I sort of feel like they muddled the ending a little bit between the books. But I was happy to the ending for the movie. You have the Hollywood ending where everything's happy in the end. But in the book, they break up and Lara Jean starts to write another letter to say to Peter that she still loves him, which is why you get the second book, P.S. I Still Love You. And then I ended up reading the second book and they get back together, obviously, of course, because, you know, there was three books and 2 more movies and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it was unusual for a book to end with 2 people, with a romance story of 2 people broken up, but with knowledge that there's a second book and they're probably going to get back together. I don't know how I felt about that. I mean, I feel like it was drama for drama's sake, not drama for actual continuation of a story. It was like, oh, well, they're broken up, but they'll probably get back together in the next book, so you better buy the next book. I mean, it's okay to kill off characters or have characters not get together in the end of a book, although I hate reading books like that. But it's okay to do that as long as that's what you're sticking with instead of, well, really just gonna break them up at the end so that you get the next book to find out how they get back together. And that was how it felt. Which annoyed me and I didn't find genuine or very nice. So which was better, the book or the movie? For me, the movie won out hands down. There were a lot of elements that I liked and way preferred in the film as opposed to the book. The book was good though, I will give it that. It was pretty good. There was some elements in there that made more sense to the movie stuff. Bits and pieces where it's a throwaway line in the movie and in the book they actually go into a lot more detail. Always happens with these things, but it was really fun to get that extra layer level in To All the Boys I Loved Before story. But yeah, I approved. But I did prefer the movie. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree, or were you surprised with some of my critiques? Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts. Keep an eye out for the next book versus movie video. I'll see you guys in the adventures.